Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Well, the warm weather is continuing this fall. We've only had about 3 days below freezing, and it's only been like 1 or 2 degrees below freezing. Normally this time of the year we've had snow, but we haven't had any this year so far. So I still have a lot of my tropical trees out here in the greenhouse. I turn the heat on at night, and in the daytime, well, it's almost t-shirt weather in the greenhouse here. So I wasn't going to prune this tree up till maybe midwinter, but because it's been out in the greenhouse, it's grown quite a bit. And eventually it'll have to go inside to the plant room once the weather starts cooling down. So I thought I would prune it up today and get it ready to go indoors, making it a little more compact and tidying up the new growth. Here's a look at the tree, and you can see the proportions of the tree are getting better. On a mature ficus, usually the canopy is like 2 times the height of the tree, the width of the canopy. And this is getting closer to those proportions, which creates that look of a mature ficus. So you can see there's a lot of growth that's been happening on the tree. A lot of shoots are extending out of the profile. There's a lot of crisscross branches that can be sorted out so that all the branches I want to grow get really good light. They're not shaded out by growth that's not in a good direction. So I'll be doing some correction to the structure today. The branches that are growing horizontally here, I'm not going to touch those. I'll just let them grow and thicken up, and they can get pruned back at a later date once the branches look a little more mature. At the moment, a lot of these side branches are going a good direction, but they're quite whippy, so they'll be thickening up over the winter. I'm getting a lot of aerial roots coming off of the main trunk here. And another thing, I'm hoping in the future that all these trunks, as they thicken up, that they'll fuse together and create a really cool structure on the tree, and I think that'll happen. Hopefully in my lifetime anyway. This tree is a Ficus microcarpa, which means small fruit, and it was repotted this year, so I don't need to repot it for at least a year until the roots have filled the pot. So today is just going to be a top pruning and sorting out that structure. I'm going to begin the work today by restoring the profile of the canopy. I have a lot of new shoots sticking out of the profile, so I'll be pruning those back, and I'll be using directional pruning. So when new branches form from these cut points, the new branches will come in a good direction. So here I go. So on this branch here, I have a leaf fanning out to the front so I can take the tip off of it like that. This one here, I can take the tip off here. I've got 2 leaves fanning out nicely, and a lot of the times I'll use the blue scissors to do this, where I'll just shear it to a profile, but I don't think there's enough growth to warrant that. I can do it individually with the scissors and be a little more precise with my pruning. So on this branch, it's getting a little tall. I'll take it back to here. This branch can come back to here. And I want to shorten all the branches in the upper canopy so that it leaves light to get down to these lower branches so they can thicken and extend. I don't want the top of the tree being so long that it shades out the lower branches. So I've got to keep that in mind also. So out the back here, I have a long shoot I can take back to here. This one back to here. There's one sticking up here. I can take the tip off. This one can come back to here. And if there's any new shoots that have grown in from the last pruning that aren't growing in a good direction, maybe growing back in towards the center of the tree or growing over top of another branch, I'll prune those away also. Just keeping my branches that are going good directions. So I think that's got my profile in check. So now I'm going to go underneath the tree and start following each branch up and just checking, you know, that everything's dividing from 1 to 2, and do any pruning I need to do. Cleaning up stubs from the last pruning, like that, and then doing directional pruning. That can come off. This tip can come off. There's one sticking up here I can prune back or off. And this one can be pruned back. Kind of flattening my branches out. Thinning them, getting lots of light to the branches I want to grow. Here's a branch crisscrossing here. I will prune this one back to here, and this one back to here. So they all get good light. Prune off some of these older leaves. Clean up a stub. This tip can come off here. This one is a good direction. I'll just let it grow. I'll move an older leaf here, an older leaf here. Yeah, so it's just a matter of looking at each branch and pruning it up for structure. And you can't be in a hurry to build your canopy, you know, to rapidly grow it, otherwise you get big, long, straight branches. So you've just got to grow it a bit wider each year. And that creates good, interesting movement and taper to your branches. And when they start getting too long, then you have to cut them back to some back budding, let them grow again, and over the years it gets refined and just looks better and better each year. So here's a branch tip I can prune off. This one I can prune back to here. I debated about just putting it in the plant room as it is, but I thought, oh, there's always something you can do to the trees. A little bit of pruning to help them along. So I don't expect anything major today. It'll all be just kind of light pruning. Taking tips off, checking all that new growth, make sure there's nothing growing in areas that I don't want. Like maybe here. I've got 2 branches growing beside each other. I want to keep one, so I'll get rid of this one. And I'm always looking at the radial direction of the branch. So you can see this one, the radial direction of the branch is out here, and this one's kind of getting close to 90 degrees off the radial direction. So I'll want to redirect it so it flows more out the front here. So I have a good leaf back here, but that's taking a lot of width off the canopy, so maybe I shouldn't. I've got an upright one here I can prune back. There's some old yellow leaves in here I can take off. I've got a couple of crisscrossing branches here. So I've got to decide, you know, how to solve that. I think I'm going to have to prune this one back to here. I'll lose some length and some width to the canopy, but I can't have them crisscrossing. I may even have to take that back harder. I think I do. So now this branch has room to grow. And I'll take the tip off that one. Yeah, and I find sometimes it takes several times going around the tree before you see everything that needs pruning. It's hard to take it all in at first. Here's a branch that's growing in towards another one. And actually, I'll take that right out. And I'm going to take this one right out. All these trunks in the middle should just kind of grow straight up. They don't need branches, horizontal branches on them, because to reach the outside profile of the canopy, they would have to cross all these outer branches. So the middle ones, you kind of want them growing straight up and all their branching at the top. Whereas the lower branches, you want all, keep them low and not vertical. And never be in a hurry to do this kind of work. You should always have lots of time so you can think and concentrate. If you try and rush your pruning, usually you make bad decisions. And so I'm starting to see more light getting into this inner canopy now, which is good to see. Let me show you what it looks like from above now. Here's a look at the canopy from above, so you can see all the space I've opened up to allow some of these upper branches to grow a little wider. Yeah, it's looking a lot lighter. That's still looking good overall. So I still am quite congested in this area. You can see how dense it is in here. It's almost dark. So I still have some thinning to do in that area. Yeah, so I just keep going round and round, and as I thin it, I see more and more of the structure. You can see some of these interior leaves were getting a little yellow from lack of light. So this is going to really help kind of invigorate the middle section of the tree. All right, let's step back and have a look at it. I'm stepping back now, having a look at the tree. So I've lost a little width on the right-hand side here, just by pruning it back. And I think I have a strong shoot coming out the left-hand side. I could prune that back just a bit to balance it a bit, so it's a little more symmetrical. So I've got some, I'll just take the tip off, like that. Helps a bit. Yeah, so you can see the structure is better. You can see the branches more. The branches are starting to kind of get a bit more layered. It's looking more mature, like a mature ficus, not just a big bush up top. And I think that'll improve into the future. That I'll get, the branch structure will get better and better as the tree matures. Yeah, so I think that's a good pruning, and I'll show you what I took off. I debated about pruning this tree. I thought, well, maybe I should just put it in the plant room as it is. And here's what I took off today, which is a lot, like lots of foliage and branches. So I'm glad I did. It really opened it up, and it set it up for the next growth phase. So all the new branches that grow in should be in good directions. And yeah, everything should just improve. So the last thing I want to do is just a little cleanup of the roots down here. Prune off some of these roots growing above the soil line. So it's just a matter of coming in and pruning away the roots you don't want, like these ones sticking up here. These ones are fine. There's one crossing here. We'll take that out. And there's one sticking up in the air. I'll take that one out too. This root's crossing everything. I'll take that out. These roots emerged from a cut here. I took off a root and I sealed it with Adams from Notion Bonsai's cut paste, and yeah, they grew out from the cut point quite nicely. I've got another root up here that's crossing the trunk. I'm going to prune that away before it thickens up and becomes a problem. So that can get pruned back. There's an aerial root here that's growing a bad direction. I'll try and redirect it like that into the soil over that side. There's one here that's kind of crossing the root base. I'll take that right out. Like that. This one, it's kind of coming from the top of this root, but maybe it'll look okay, who knows. This one I can redirect a bit. Yeah, and then these roots that are sticking out over the edge of the pot, I'll just prune away some of these roots sticking up, and just a little bit of a cleanup here. Quite excited for this tree. I think it's going to be a real beauty someday. And it's even looking good now, I think. It's getting there anyway. So this is the one I call Ficus Fancy. It's part of the Ficus sisters, two trees that looked identical when I bought them as young plants in little pots. And I grew this one with all kinds of multiple trunks coming up. And Ficus plain has just sort of the single trunk that then divides and no aerial roots. So two different styles for two trees that at one time looked quite identical. The last operation on Ficus Fancy will be to spray it, just to make sure there's no scale insects. I only found 2 blisters on it, but it doesn't hurt to spray it before it goes indoors. Alright, I'm ready to rinse the tree now. I often wonder, would this tree grow better in the plant room, or is it better to keep it outside here? It gets quite cool at night in the greenhouse, kind of down to 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is quite cool. But then in the daytime it warms up to room temperature. And it's easy to water them in the greenhouse here and inspect them, so that's the reason I keep them out here as long as I can. Winter is a long winter, and yeah, the less time I think they spend indoors under plant lights, the better. So at least, I can keep this out a little longer until the temperature outside starts getting really cold, and then I can bring it in. Okay, so that's all rinsed off. So when the day comes to move this indoors, it's all ready. It's time now for today's updates. On the floor of my greenhouse here, I have the ficus I grew from a seed, the one with all the aerial roots. And I haven't uncovered the cloth from the base of these new roots I'm forming in quite a while, so I don't want the roots growing into the cloth. So I think today's update, I'll get this tree out and we'll have a look at the aerial roots. Here's a look at my very first bonsai, my Ficus microcarpa that I grew from a seed. So I don't expect a huge amount of root growth because it's been quite cool in the greenhouse, especially at night. But I think once this goes in the plant room, those roots are really going to take off. So I haven't inspected them in a while, so I'm going to unwrap the cloth and just see what's underneath. Okay, here I go, and I'll have to do this very carefully because I can see there is a root that's growing outside of the cloth here. So I'll start from the top and kind of peel it back. Hopefully not tearing any roots too much. I always tear a few. There we go. So there's some new roots growing down this side. There's some here that have grown through the cloth. There's one here. So there's one cloth removed. Now I'll remove the other one. Certainly likes growing into the cloth. I guess it's good and moist. The roots are always searching for moisture. grew in here. So I might be better to put this in the plant room. That way I can remove the cloth and I can just grow it, and it's so humid in there that the roots will just grow in midair. I'll keep them well misted. So there we go. So you can see a few new roots forming. And all these ones are growing into the soil, so they should be okay, I hope. I think so. Yeah, so that's a good look at the root base. Here's a bit of a close-up view. So lots and lots of roots. And again, as these thicken up, I'll select some of them that I'm going to keep, and other ones will get pruned away. And the top of the tree, some of the shoots are getting quite long. It's almost ready. You could probably use a pruning. I could prune off this one shoot sticking out the front here. It's getting too long. I'll prune it back to here. And this one to here. Maybe this one back also. Just a little profile pruning here, just to keep it in check. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Okay, so that is the update for today. So I think I will bring this into the plant room and see how it does. This tree is growing in a plastic training pot. It's a very shallow, wide pot to get those roots spreading out nicely. And my goal is to eventually put it in that nice Chinese pot I bought. So out here on the bench, you can see the nice pot. Yeah, that'll be a great size for it, and it should look quite nice. So I'm looking forward to that. I just repotted that tree this year, so it'll be next summer at the earliest that it goes into this pot. I'm going to continue growing this ficus in the greenhouse here until it gets cooler outside. And then I think when I bring it into the plant room, it'll get that warmth and humidity and good light under the grow lights. It'll just explode in growth. So that'll be quite exciting to see. So I'll be sure to keep you updated on the progress of this tree in the future. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.